Hi, I'm Micah Clark. Thank you for joining us today. I have a good friend, a special guest with us to talk about some events that happened this week that we talked about in my weekly email, and you heard about in the news with the convention. State Representative Mike Speedy from Indianapolis was there as a delegate. I've known Mike for many years. We've worked on a lot of bills together, and so I'm glad to have him on here. You also know he ran for Congress. So we're going to start with that, Mike. Just talk about your congressional run. I'm sorry it turned out the way it did. I thought you were the best candidate and conservative in the race, and I know you were close, but it's strange times.
Yeah.
And the amount of money spent against you was unbelievable.
Yeah, it
but
was.
Thank you for running. I mean, you put the values out there that you believe in,
Absolutely.
and did well, but when you're outspent probably 2 or 3 or 4 to 1, it's tough.
Yeah. So
in a crowded field too.
the crowded field and then all the negativity at the end directed towards us, distortions, and I'll just say it, lies. You know, our first concern when we started running was we always wanted to win, but it wasn't my first concern early on. My first concern is, would we be able to represent who we are? Would we be able to get our message out? And then whatever happens at the end, at least they would know who I am, or they would know how I do things in terms of running a campaign and fighting. And I will say that we accomplished that goal, and I felt very good about, I still feel very good about the campaign that we ran, who we represented, us, and I'm very pleased in that regard. Obviously, it was a very disappointing race. And we mourned it for quite a for several weeks.
You invest everything in it, yeah.
But as I told people on the campaign trail, we didn't know what the results would be on May 7th. And we may not win, but we are convinced and still convinced that we cannot lose from running this race, and we felt called to do it. I still feel called to serve. We've served for 20 years. I've served for 20 years, and that calling just doesn't go away. Yeah, it was disappointing, but I got our message out, and a lot of people were very impressed with our campaign, and we'll see where we go from here.
Well, you know, I just kind of jumped out of the box with assuming something. You and I have known each other for so long.
Yeah.
Tell our audience, though, let's back up a little bit. You were on the city council for a long time, and then state rep. Tell us about those two things, your district, where your district is. You and I have worked a lot on decency issues and things like that. So
I've always told people I have 2 jobs. I kind of jokingly call a day job and a night job. My night job it's not really is public service, and I tell people I do my night job because of my mom. My mom has always been my inspiration to give back to those. Much is given, much is required, and I have fulfilled those requirements by public service, and it came at a substantial sacrifice to my business and to my family. And so I served. I was first elected in 2003 and served on the city council from 2004 to 2010. Then elected in the House, the state House, from my first session was 11, and this was my last session in 14. So 14 sessions. I do my day job, as I call it, in real estate. My dad did. I just did what my dad did because I wanted to leverage his experience, but I also wanted to work with him and get to know him. My mom passed about a little over 20 years ago, and I wanted to get to know my dad because I was closer to my mom because he was a workaholic. So my district, my state house district, my city council district were all on the southeast side. Eastern Perry Township, Franklin Township. It touched, Hancock, touched Shelby and Johnson, but was the lower right-hand square of that tic-tac-toe board of Marion County, and it's been I've enjoyed service very, very much, and it's in my blood, and I've managed these 2 things together because I felt they were the right things to do.
Well, I'm going to miss you at the State House. You've been a great ally to us. I was excited about your run, but also knew the option of, well, if he goes to Congress, that's great, but if he doesn't, I lose him in the State House, an ally, because you've been an ally to us for so long. But so one of the things I want to talk about, and everybody's talking about right now, and it was historic and exciting. It was the State Republican Convention. Those things are a lot of fun sometimes. And for the first time I know of since 1996, when Steve Goldsmith was the nominee and basically left his lieutenant governor choice up to the delegates, we had competitive race for lieutenant governor. Typically, the nominee will say, "This is who I want." The convention just goes along with it. But we had a pastor from Noblesville announce about a year ago that he was going to run, and I'll be honest, I know Micah Beckwith very well. I didn't think he should do that. I wanted him to run for state rep in my area because Chuck Goodrich was running. I just thought that was, nobody had done that in so long. And then lo and behold, he wins. And kudos to him. But first of all, I know the person that Mike Braun chose is Julie McGuire, state rep. You know her well. You've served with her. I know her a little bit, and I think she's pretty conservative. But well, tell us a little bit about your thoughts from the convention, what you saw. I know you endorsed Julie, like a lot of legislators did, and I think we were in a great position that we had two conservatives. From a conservative perspective, we couldn't lose in one sense.
I don't know Micah as well as you do, or well. I have had nothing but positive experiences with him. We were obviously on the same campaign trail in many locations. Interactions have been very positive. I have had touches with him over the years on conservative issues. We've agreed on all those issues. I don't know of any issues we've disagreed on. Haven't followed his service and activism as closely as I wish I did, but I had nothing but positive interactions with him. But yeah, we like many legislators, we endorsed. I endorsed Julie McGuire. My position in endorsing her is a little more unique because whenever you become a newly elected state representative, leadership assigns you a mentor, someone who's there to guide you, to answer questions, to be there to make sure you don't make any mistakes, that you're more efficient and up to speed much quicker. Though, and I was assigned to be her mentors. Now, granted, she came to the legislature with a lot of prior experience, and I think Mike Braun noted that. She was head of policy, or part of the policy team anyway, in the Senate. So she knew she knew the Senate very well. She knew all the policy issues very well. She knew and the procedures. I mean, she was up to speed, and she showed that in her short time in the House. She took on some heavy issues, and she was not afraid of that, and she wanted to find results. And she, you know, there's the old saying: there's two types of legislators. There's the show horse and there's the workhorse. She was the workhorse, and so when I heard that she was selected, it meant a lot to a lot of us legislators because it also said that Mike Braun respects the legislature. We have not felt that in quite some time. And so that was very good news from that perspective, and you know, the frustration that was backing Micah was felt on both sides of that race.
Well, I was going to say, and you can comment this if you want, but of course I wasn't there. I was getting a lot of people texting me. I feel like that the selection of Micah wasn't so much a rejection of Mike Braun as it was 8 years of conservatives being ignored by the governor. And all the conservative issues that you've worked on and that we've seen, and we could name several things: protecting girls' sports, girls' privacy, parental rights. Those came from the legislature. The governor's office, if anything, sometimes made calls limiting bills we wanted.
That's right.
I felt like, and people are frustrated with the base of the party kind of being taken for granted.
And what a lot of people don't know is that when the governor didn't outright oppose these bills, he would work behind the scenes to pare them back and make them something less than what they were ever intended to be. So that was very frustrating.
I've never understood that tactically, and I do know, you know, you have to be reasoned and you have to know what you can get, but when they scale back a good bill, like the girls' sports bill, originally it included colleges. I think the governor's office cut that back. Of course, he vetoed it. It was shocking to everybody. But the fact of the matter is, the left is going to come after you either way. So you might as well go for what you can get, what you have the votes for, and the intensity on the other side is not going to change that much. And do the right thing.
Well, I think there's some statewide business interests that have had his ear, probably still have his ear, and I think that they had an influence in the process. So
now, whether it be, and I'm not here to pick on Governor Holk. Actually, you and I have known Eric for years.
Yeah, we
He's
have.
a super nice guy. We like him personally, but
I met him when he was with John Hausneller's
yes,
on
a
staff.
long time ago.
Yeah.
So how much, though, typically, I know you have different styles with every governor. We'll see what Mike Braun may be like if he is elected, or Jennifer McCormick. But really, it's the legislature that drives most of the policy, isn't it?
That's the way the founders of our country intended it, is to have these three equal branches. One was the executor, the one that executes, implements, and one was the policy, and the other one was to resolve conflicts and interpret the law. And and obviously our state constitution mirrored our federal constitution in that regard. And so, yeah, the policy should come from the legislature, and that's where they're closer to the people, especially I'm biased, but especially state reps.
Right.
So that was the intent of the framers of our country, and so it's the way it should be.
So Micah gets up, gives a pretty good speech. He's worked the field for a year. Did probably everything right
From my perspective, he brought a lot. Just talking on the day of the convention, he brought a lot of energy. His floor game, his speech, his presence at the convention was top notch.
Yeah.
And it was well done.
And he must have swung some undecided.
I think he did. I think he did. I think he knew it was close, but just like me on election night, he knew he didn't lose necessarily, but he knew he didn't win. I think it was decided the day of.
Yeah.
But yeah, he did a great job. Julie did a great job too.
Sure. So tell me about some of the reaction you've seen, both, if you want, the GOP establishment or the GOP shock or the media freak out or the liberals, the Democrats trying to make advantage of there's a pastor on the ticket now. Tell me about some of the reactions and what's your thoughts on some of them are.
Well,
I mean, you could have expected.
Yeah.
Even if Julie was the nominee, I think they would have.
Oh yeah, they would have,
because she's conservative. They would have gone after her.
Absolutely.
They call us all extremists.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting. I haven't studied all of Micah's public comments, but I guess I did see one, and that either he's proclaimed himself or was described as a Christian nationalist. And I think that it's going to be good to have that debate.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
I love my nation.
Right.
I believe my nation is the best nation that ever existed on the face of the earth, and I'll just say it's superior to every nation that ever existed. Doesn't mean it was perfect. I'm a patriot. I love the country. But I don't know what a Christian nationalist is.
We didn't hear about that 3 or 4 years ago. There's a new term that has been thrown at us.
I think it's a new, highly crafted club that is just that's been developed to be swung in a presidential election year. We saw these presidential elections; they create new tactics. Obviously, it was the orchestrated riots of 2020.
Right.
This year it might be the Christian Nationalist Club, but I think there's going to be positive aspects of having these debates. Let's focus on these words.
Right.
I have a lot of confidence in Micah that if he's like me, and I think he is, in so many ways, we are in the State House to be ambassadors for Christ first. So what I have done through my public service is I have to disagree with people. I have to do my job. I have to stand for what I believe in and what I believe I was sent there to do. But I have to do it in a way that preserves relationships. That opens up the possibility of talking about faith. It may never happen, but you have to do it in a way that leaves that option open to someone that you've just disagreed with heavily. And I think I'm hopeful that Micah will have that approach down pat, especially being a leader in the church. And I think that'll be good to have around there. No, I see a lot of positives.
So let me, for our audience's sake, you've been in government for a long time. I I think, and I'm not diminishing people who are excited about Micah's win. Again, Micah and I are very good friends.
Yeah.
And I didn't endorse either one, but Micah was, if I was delegate, I might have probably would have voted for him. But I also know I had people on both sides. And I said, just go to the convention if you can't decide. But I do think some of his supporters really don't understand what the lieutenant governor's office is. Tell us a little bit about what it is and isn't, because in some ways it's much like the U.S. vice president.
Yeah.
Yes, they oversee the Senate, but it's only to break a tie.
Yeah, so I haven't
It's an administrative position.
It is. I haven't studied it extensively. They do have an official constitutional role in the Senate. They preside over the process in the Senate, and then a lot of their responsibilities, I believe, and we'll verify this, and this will all be well understood before too long, is a lot of their responsibilities are assigned by statute. Overseeing, rural affairs and commerce and agriculture and a lot. And I may get some of these wrong, but a lot of these agencies have been under the purview of the LG, and but at the same time, I think we saw even under the Holcomb administration that. No matter what the statute says, if that person filling that spot wanted to report to the governor, that was what's going to happen, not the LG. And but yeah, they do have. I'm sure there's a list of responsibilities in statute for that position, and then there's aspects of it that is kind of enshrined in our Constitution.
So, in your experience as a legislator, if you're working on a policy issue or legislation, did the LG in your 20 years ever play a role in influencing things, or is it more right out of the governor's office?
I have never seen an LG be involved in policy in my 14 years. So the governor's office, no matter who the governor is, I've been through 3 governors, Daniels, Tailend, Pence, and Holcomb. They have on their governor, on their staff, policy heads. This person is a head of public safety. This person is veterans. This person is, and then they have. Sometimes they'll assign 4 or 5 issues, but they'll have about 4. They'll have a legislative policy team of about 4 or 5 people. It varies, and they'll have a legislative director, an assistant legislative director. But that is where the governor influences the process. Those particular policy heads are in communication with chairmen in both houses. I've been a chairman of a couple of committees in the House, and that's how the governor influences policy. I have never seen a LG been in communication with anybody in our side of the State House, in the House. And when I needed some help on some legislation that you and I've worked on, I've asked for help from the LG and was not successful, and I don't necessarily blame that person. That's not their job.
Right.
That's a procedural position as far as I understand it. And as when you're in charge of procedure and process, you have to be objective. You have to be considered fair. And you have to, for that position, or at least for the operation of that position, have to somewhat suppress your personal views just to make sure that people believe you're being fair. So there's that aspect to just being a presiding officer.
Now people say, well, but the lieutenant governor oversees the Senate. But from my experience, most of the time when that happens, it's the last few days of the session. Senate president's very busy. They've got all things going on. Every now and then the gavel will be handed to her or to the lieutenant governor, but it is a very procedural spot.
Yeah.
And the president of the Senate and the House, the Speaker of the House, they can hand the gavel to anybody for a few hours. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
Do they have power over the process, or is the lieutenant governor really just a person that keeps order going on in the Senate?
That is my understanding of the position. Yeah, as you mentioned, the Speaker the Speaker presides in the House, but there's several different Speaker pro tems.
Yes.
And they even, and as you retire, it's been a tradition that the Speaker will allow the retiring member to be a Speaker pro tem for that day. And all they are doing is managing the mechanics of the process.
Right.
And to my knowledge, that is the LG's role in the Senate.
Okay, so we've had reactions from the Democrats and from the media, and even from Senator Braun about Micah's choice, or the delegates choosing Micah. What's your advice for him between now and November? Because really, what I've seen in the past is the running mate is the kind of the lieutenant or the quarterback for the nominee. Do you think there is a risk that they're trying to make a big deal out of, this guy, he's going to say something? I would assume that the odds are, with Trump at the top of the ticket, Jim Banks, the odds favor Mike Braun.
Oh yeah, no question about it.
I mean, I haven't seen a Democrat get above 42% in quite a while statewide.
No.
So is this just a bunch of fear tactics in the media?
Absolutely it is. It's what I call it's the chattering class. It's a bunch of chatter that isn't substantive, but only a certain number of people like to talk about, that most people are not paying attention to.
Yeah.
But you asked the question, what would be my advice? So the legislative process is heavily dependent upon relationships. You have to, things get done with relationships. It doesn't mean you have to leave your beliefs, your convictions at the door. It means you have to get to know people.
Right.
And if you're skilled, you get to know people, you get to respect people, and you do not, and you still stand for your convictions, and they're not for sale or not to be bargained with, but people, and you can do that in a way that people respect you back, and that would be my advice to Micah, is get to know the people in the process. Humility is a very powerful tool, and that's what I would be working on for him. Campaigning. I would not shy away from his convictions and beliefs, but I would be about very unifying conservative principles, limited government, individual responsibility, these kind of things, conservative fiscal policy. I mean, at the end of the day, we had the delegates had a choice between two conservative people. So the message is clear that at least this party, and I believe people who don't associate with either party, still embrace those ideas in the state of Indiana.
Well, I appreciate you joining us today. I know you and your family are going on a vacation, so hope you have a great time, and thanks for coming by this morning to talk with us and give us some. Again, I'll say it again, I'm going to miss you at the legislature.
Thank you.
We'll still be in touch, of course.
Absolutely.
I know you're still involved in politics and things, wherever the Lord leads you, but thanks for taking the time to join us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me, Micah.
Sure. Well, I hope you enjoyed that today from an inside perspective on what happened at the convention, some other things. Appreciate you watching today. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I'm Micah Clark with the American Family Association of Indiana.